All right, and we're on. What's up, man? Mateo? Welcome back. Back again. Dun, dun. Guess who's back? Um, Slim Shady put out a new record recently, which was kind of fire. Tell you the truth. The music hasn't been that good for the last 20 years, but I got to tell you, this new single he put out recently was pretty sweet. I don't know if you guys are fans. Um, I'm a fan. Okay, I like Eminem. I like Slim Shady. I'm not a stan, but you know, geez, 20 years ago, he was putting out just like unbelievably awesome records. And then something happened. I think his friend Proof died, and then like he kind of went off the wagon a little bit, stopped doing drugs, and had to kind of like get back on his mojo. But it was never quite the same after 2005 or so. And it's not like I even listened a lot to his stuff when I was like 9 at the time, because that was the days of like LimeWire, where in order to get music, like you had to kind of know what you want, and you like went on LimeWire and you like downloaded the music that you wanted onto like those CDs. Like you'd burn the CDs, you'd put like the name of the song on them, and then you would travel around with like your little, your CD player and your headphones and whatever. But this was like before YouTube, I think. And so it's not like you were exposed to a whole world of music. You just kind of like got exposed to whatever your friends were listening to, and then like whatever it is you saw on TV. And one of my buddies, we were on a field trip and he played I forgot what the song was, but it was an Eminem song. It was like bow 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 chicka wow. It was that song. And I was like, yo, this is dope. So I looked up some of his songs, burnt me a CD. But, you know, a time long past. But this is the season, I guess, returning to the roots, coming back in action. And it's been 6 months, I think, since we made our last vid. So I figured I'd check in with the bros. I don't really have work I want to do today. I figure it's a nice day outside, not a cloud in the sky here in Georgia. And, we'll just kind of do a fireside chat about everything that I've seen go on over the last, shoot, 5, 6 months. So, just a quick update. The business is going great. For all those who don't know, I have an accounting business, Bear Bookkeeping and Tax. It's on Monero. It's actually one of the first businesses listed, which is pretty sweet. And we give a 5% discount for Monero. And interestingly, I've taken on a couple clients who are cool with Monero, and I've been paid on a few occasions. To tell you the truth, though, most people do not pay me in Monero. Even though I do include my address on the invoice, and I say, hey, you get a 5% discount if you send me, Monero for payment. Most people they're not into that, which is fine, but you got to plant the seed somewhere so that people can at least get a light bulb moment or a flicker, and they go online and they're like, huh, what's Monero? What's this 5% discount I can get? And, when I do get paid in Monero, it's pretty sweet. I do record everything by the book. I've got Monero on my balance sheet, and I record all my sales in Monero and all that kind of stuff. It's digital cash at the end of the day, but it's kind of cool to be part of that circular network that we've got going on here. And I do see more people setting up businesses and accepting Monero, which is cool. There's a new dude I saw on YouTube. Actually, he's not on YouTube. He's on Twitter. And he is like an auto parts retail person. He sells batteries and he sells like oil for his car or whatever, or your car. And he accepts Monero, which is sweet. So you get more and more people starting to accept this stuff. And ultimately, if you just get a few people to accept this stuff and kind of normalize the fact that, yeah, we can accept payment in this thing, more people are going to be keen to take it on board, because the merchant transaction fees, like, I don't know how this is legal. You really start to see how much of a scheme this is when you go into business for yourself. How, like, you use an invoicing program, whether it's like Stripe or you use QuickBooks or whatever, and you send your invoice, they pay the invoice, and you have to pay some kind of merchant fee every time they pay you. And on top of that, it takes like 4 or 5 days for the money to even get to you sometimes. And from what I understand, this is something my buddy told me. He said that what they do when they hold on to your money like this, after they charge you the fee, is they invest this money in like overnight repos. So, they're holding on to like hundreds of millions of dollars potentially, these invoicing companies. And what they do is they do like these short overnight investments. They get like a little bit of an interest rate on your money, and then they give it to you 4 or 5 days later. It's quite a scheme, isn't it? And my buddy from Australia, who's actually the person who runs this company, accepts Monero, by the way. Although he's hella busy, he's growing, he's becoming like a big deal around here in these parts. Um, I've been trying to get him on Monerica, even though it doesn't really matter if he's on Monerica because he's like doing so well. But nevertheless, trying to grow that site. But he was telling me that like in other places around the world, like in Australia, whatever, like this kind of scheme doesn't happen. This is just here in the States where everything's a freaking scheme to cash in on you. But maybe that's not true. I don't know. Let me know. But that's what he says, and he's a reputable source. But yeah. So, anyways, if you pay a lot in these transaction fees and you can cut down on that by using Monero, it's pretty sweet. And I highly recommend it because the transaction fee for Monero is like a penny, sometimes even less, and your transaction is totally private. It's almost instantaneous because you can trust the zero conf 99% of the time, and it's like really sweet to have as part of your business. You don't have to pay like your $5 to $10 Bitcoin transaction costs, which I think like a few months ago it went up to like $200 to transact Bitcoin, which is wild. But one reason why I don't use it, and then the security and the privacy concerns with the other cryptos. So yeah, I mean Monero's key. Use it in your business. It's awesome. And by the way, if I sound nasally, it's because I'm kind of getting over this illness. The old summer sickness strikes again. We had our AC break in the house, and we had one night where we slept in like 80-degree temperatures. That's probably what did it. But yeah, that's the reason for that. But I don't have any tabs pulled up today. We're just gonna try to chill and talk about the Binance delisting, how the super hyper mega bullish case is coming along for our lovely Monero. Some developments with another coin I've told you guys about called Zano, which I'm pretty psyched about, and some other updates. There's just a lot going on, and I want to try to make more videos just so I don't have to like, throw all this stuff up like 5 months later. But, a lot of what we had predicted over the last few years is kind of coming to pass. And, we told you they cracked down the mixers, right? And that was an obvious one as far as I could tell. But they came after the Samurai Wallet Bros. They came after the Tornado Cash guy. They came after Bitcoin Fog. How do you find the fog? Well, they found him. And they put together like some like very shoddy case, basically saying, hey, jury, look at these dots here. These dots connect to these dots, and these dots are the Bitcoin Fog, which is that guy. Pretty shoddy case, but they're able to psych the jury into believing like this dude was like money laundering basically by running one of these mixers online for Bitcoin, like however many years ago, before there was any kind of like legal basis for cryptocurrency at all. And this is one of the concerns with transparent public blockchains, is the fact that they can look back however many years and they can determine whether or not you did something that they now determine to be illegal. And that kind of thing, never want to mess with that, okay? Because you never know. We live in a kind of anarcho-tyranny where anything goes. If you're an enemy of the state, if you are somebody they don't like, they can just turn on the switch, look at the public blockchain, piece a couple dots together, and then you could wind up in some Spanish jail like Roger Ver just did. Now, he's out on bail, from what I hear. God bless you, Roger. What's up? We love you. And, he got arrested for an alleged tax fraud that took place about 10 years ago. And The commentary I saw on this was interesting. People were like, "Well, why are they going after people like 10 years later? How bizarre! Because isn't there a statute of limitations on this stuff? Blah blah blah. He's not even a U.S. citizen anymore." And the thing is, one, with tax fraud, there's no statute of limitations, and then with two, um, they typically don't go after people 10 years after the fact because, well, there typically aren't documents to back up a case for tax fraud going back 10 years because the banks, they typically don't keep statements and records for 10 years. You have a lot of these banks merging with other banks. That's the centralization continues to happen in that sector, and that's something I experience all the time as an accountant. Somebody has, let's say, Wachovia, and that turns into SunTrust, and then that turns into Truist Bank, and those records get lost in the transition. And the document requirements for tax returns, for instance, I believe is 7 years. And so if the IRS is trying to press a case against somebody for tax fraud, past 7 or 8 years, it's going to be very difficult. But the thing the public blockchain allows is for investigations to go back forever because everything on the chain is forever. And anything on public blockchains, as I've said a million times, can and will be used against you. And so Roger Ver, allegedly, this is all alleged, when he was leaving the States, they alleged that he didn't pay his exit tax. And an exit tax is a kind of unrealized capital gains tax. And they looked at the blockchain and saw his Bitcoins and basically said, oh, well, you didn't pay your exit tax on these Bitcoins that you had. And so, you must have intentionally done that. And unfortunately, if you're like an online libertarian, you're saying taxation is theft and whatever, they can try to kind of morph that into a fraud case because that may be the basis of intent or something like that. That's a stretch on my end, but like that could be something that factors in. But who knows like what the details of this case are? I don't know, but that's something they can do. And so Bitcoin Fog, Roger Ver, and there's going to be a million more examples, especially as the IRS really starts to piece things together on these public blockchains with artificial intelligence technologies and these blockchain forensics companies they're working with doing more research and work. And as they start to put out more tax forms that make it so that people have to tie their tax IDs with their transaction IDs, all these things they're going to be able to put together as a puzzle. And when they figure out more about who owns what UTXOs now, they'll be able to figure out more who owned UTXOs back then and who didn't pay the tax that they should have. Because one of the big parts of their tax gap, that they call it, the missing money that they haven't been able to collect, comes from people not reporting their crypto activity. And so, based on what I've seen in Reddit and with other sources where people are talking about their tax problems, I mean, they're starting to come down pretty hard on crypto people. And they're really putting together the infrastructure to make it so that if you are dealing with crypto and you're not paying your taxes, you will get in trouble. And, not ideal. And I don't want to get caught up in all that. I do pay my taxes. Okay, I do everything by the book. But the problem is, especially now that we have this case with Bitcoin Fog, and I forgot what his actual name was. I think it's like Stanislav something. You know, I mean, you could get mixed up in something that you don't want to get mixed up in. And I see this actually pretty frequently in people's stories about how the IRS sends them letters saying, hey, you actually didn't report all your crypto activity because this is what we've been able to find out by either looking at 1099s that these exchanges send us or by looking at different information. And then they have to get into an argument with the IRS saying, hey, no, like this actually is incorrect. Your information is incorrect. But the problem is you're guilty until you're proven innocent with taxing authorities like the IRS. And so you have to basically, come up with your own set of evidence and your own cost basis for your assets and all this stuff in order to make a case that you don't actually owe the tax that you owe. And so the less information you have out there, the better. I mean, keep good records and report stuff, and I have to tell you that, right? But um, you don't want them doing the math on this stuff because it's never going to be in your favor if it's up to them to kind of figure this stuff out. So, you know, I just don't use public blockchains at all. Like that era is over. It's no longer fun. Like we're kind of at this like peak degeneracy era with the public blockchains where you have Solana meme coins and all this stuff and like all some of those are kind of funny, right? But like they're tracking this stuff now, man. They're tracking this stuff and now that they're using artificial intelligence technologies, they're going to people like Binance and Kraken saying, hey, give us the taxpayer data going back to 2018. I mean, forget about it, dude. And we talked about this in the last video, but they're coming out with a new tax form called the 1099-DA. And I've seen some people say that this is a rumor or like whatever. No, this is a real thing they're doing. And they're going to be issuing a 1099 for every crypto transaction that you do on one of these exchanges. Okay? Every single transaction is going to have a 1099 associated with it. So the compliance cost for having an exchange is going to go nuclear, which means you're going to have a barrier of entry which pops up. And there are some other regs that we talked about in the prior video that these exchanges are going to have to comply with. Namely, if you send over $10,000 of a crypto, then that's going to have to be reported to some agency. I forgot what it was, maybe FineSim. It ties into the whole Bank Secrecy Act thing. But all that compliance is going to create a barrier of entry for people to set up exchanges or places where you can trade crypto. And that means that they're going to be that much more subject to regulatory capture, which means that you're going to have a lot more KYC, AML, and all that stuff, which makes it kind of difficult for this stuff to be the freedom technology that it was once considered. So that's something that's happening. And, I'm happy to see that Monero is continuing to try to have different ramps that people can use to get onboarded to it. Haveno is out. That's another development that happened while I was away. It's not, and I haven't used it, so I don't have the full details on this. But it doesn't have the federation that it once was purported to have. Like the first model was like, okay, we're gonna have like this kind of federation type deal, and like the transaction fees are going to go towards Monero research, and this federation is going to be like the arbiter for like any disputes that happen. But now it's different administrators can kind of run their own Haveno networks, as far as I understand, and now you have different networks popping up, and they're talking about bridging these networks so that it can be one big thing. And it's out though. It's out. People are using it. Apparently, it's working for people. You can basically do cash for Monero transactions in different cryptocurrencies too. And so it's decentralized and all this stuff. So it's great to see. I still need to do more research on it, but sounds like it's working, and it's good that that's up because Local Monero got shut down, which is another big story. And it's kind of unfortunate because that was one of those things I thought would be around for the long haul. But I guess things got kind of hot after the Samurai Wallet takedown and, the pressure that came from the U.S. government, because it's not just the mixers and it's not just Local Monero, apparently. It's Lightning Network service providers. I mean, they're moving out of the States because of how hot the regulatory heat is getting. And so, just saying, that's another thing we kind of predicted, right? I mean, we didn't think it would happen so soon or that they would move out of the States. But, basically, the definition of money service business was going to be applied to Lightning Network service providers, which entailed a whole bunch of regulations, which made it so that they didn't want to operate in the States. That's essentially what happened. And so, the crackdown is on. It's totally on. And, I think I feel pretty good about what it is we predicted and our pretty simple approach to just using Monero. If you want an onboard to Monero, here's the best way to do it. Just, be valuable and set up a business and accept it for payment. There's still trade over, but the best way, in my opinion, to get Monero is just to be part of the circular economy, which is what this stuff is for anyway. To begin with, it wasn't meant to be a casino. It wasn't meant to be some kind of security that you bought in the hopes that it would go up, even though we still think Monero is going to go super hyper mega nuclear for a number of reasons we'll get into here momentarily. But it was meant to be a medium of exchange. It was meant to be a method by which you could transact outside of the traditional legacy financial system. And this has been like so far lost by the traditional big coin arena now. I mean, it's pretty much totally captured regulatorily, and it seems inescapable at this point that this is going to be consumed by the legacy financial system with the ETFs and with the crypto exchanges becoming kind of banks at this point. And Arctic Mind, he did an interview with Doug Tuman and the Monero Talk Bros, and he was talking about how the exchanges now are basically the layer twos that a lot of these cryptos need to function. They are the scaling solutions, and in a way, if Bitcoin, these major cryptocurrencies, were to regain status as freedom money that doesn't rely on third parties, and it were to kind of shake off the influence that these third-party exchanges have kind of taken in this space, they would essentially cease to function because of how many trades and how much activity takes place on centralized ledgers, where it's not actually Bitcoin or Ethereum or these cryptos moving on the blockchain. It's simply just a centralized digital ledger that is like an accounting system outside of the blockchain. And if you have all those transactions taking place on that instead of on the base layer, then you really don't have the need to scale the base layer, because the scaling solution is centralized and is a product and feature of these centralized exchanges. And so I found that to be a really interesting insight from Arctic Mind, because Monero to some degree had a lot of liquidity taking place on these centralized exchanges as well. And when it was delisted from Binance, we got to see the dynamic block size kick in. Now, some people thought that there was like a flooding attack that happened. Some people thought that it was maybe all the activity moving off Binance and onto the actual blockchain itself, people using decentralized methods of trading Monero and getting Monero instead of using Binance, which led to the increase in activity, which led to the dynamic block size kicking in, and basically our scaling solution, which worked phenomenally, by the way. It worked really phenomenally. Like, the fees stayed very low. The only problem was it took a long time for transactions to go through. And so what people had to do was up their fee a little bit to 2 or 3 pennies for it to actually get priority and get sent to the blockchain. But that was an interesting insight, and what that seems to entail is there's a higher singular point of failure problem with these cryptocurrencies moving forward that don't have this kind of delisting happening that is happening with Monero. Because let's say like Coinbase comes under attack, right? Like a hacker attack or some other attack, and it stops working. I mean, basically these blockchains freeze is what happens, because if all of those transactions which are taking place on those centralized ledgers move to the base layer of these cryptocurrencies, I mean, those fees are going to go nuclear, especially if we continue to have the halvings moving forward. And like I said, I think earlier in this video, like, you had transaction costs go up to like $200 for Bitcoin at one point. And there was some other feature involved with that. I forgot what it was. I'm not paying attention to Bitcoin much anymore, but Could you imagine all of those transactions hitting the base layer at that one point? I mean, it would be impossible to move your money, and the network would essentially freeze, right? And so, that's an increased risk, and we'll have to see what happens with that. And I think the ETFs are basically using Coinbase as a custodian for the coins that back their ETFs. I think that is something that's happening. So you would have a very big problem, multi-layered problem, if there is a problem with one of these centralized exchanges, which is now being treated as sort of like a crypto bank, right? I mean, imagine an FTX type situation happening with Coinbase. I mean, that'd be a serious freaking problem. And if all those transactions hit the base layer of these cryptocurrencies, and it's evidence that like they don't work in that kind of scenario, I mean, what's that going to do to the confidence, right? What's that going to do to the confidence? And so we've been seeing Michael Saylor, we've been seeing McCormick, those people out there basically saying, hey, look, there's going to be a lot of people who just simply can't use Bitcoin on the base layer. Like they're not going to be able to self-custody. They're not going to be able to have self-sovereignty with their finances. Unfortunately, that's just how it's going to have to be. And that kind of goes against the original ethos, from what I understand. I mean, you can have more self-sovereignty in Monero than you can with any other cryptocurrency, not only because it scales, but also because of the privacy element. In my opinion, you're not totally self-sovereign unless people don't know you have what you have to begin with. And if people know that you have Bitcoin to the extent that you have it, and it's a lot, and you're traveling to who knows where, and somebody has that information, you could get kidnapped or something. I mean, that actually happens to people. We've gone through stories on this channel about that. So self-sovereignty involves privacy, and if you don't have privacy, I don't think you have self-sovereignty at the end of the day. And that's what I think also the Sailors and the McCormicks and the people who are in that space are kind of missing. But yeah, there's some comments on that. What else have I missed? Oh, let's talk about Zano real quick. Zano, they forked, and this was probably 2-3 months ago, but they forked to Zarkanum, and now you have a private proof-of-stake cryptocurrency that has the ability for you to build private assets and private tokens on top of the Zano blockchain, which is pretty freaking sweet. And the whole reason I got into Zano at first was for the e-commerce capabilities, where you could do private escrow contracts, which was really enticing to me, because if you're trading with somebody online and you don't want to trust some administrative third party, which is definitely something that people are kind of tuned into now that the whole incognito market situation happened the way it did. If you're not tuned into what that was, basically there is this darknet market where people traded who knows whatever darknet things, and they used Monero, but you basically had to trust this third party administrator in order to do disputes and settle trades and stuff like that, as far as I understand it. Okay, I'm not a dark web pro, but that's essentially how I understood it. And this third party administrator basically turned the tables on all of the people who use this website. He said, hey, look, I got logs of all of you guys. And if you don't give me money, send me Bitcoin, Monero, whatever, then you're in trouble. I'm going to give you up to law enforcement. I mean, crazy, right? He's basically extorting everybody who used his marketplace. And I don't think people saw that coming. Ultimately, the guy got arrested because he was just totally brazen in his OPSEC mistakes. And I think Zano on Twitter did a pretty good write-up of that, and then Mental Outlaw had a pretty good video on that as well. But basically, you don't want to trust third parties at all, right? Even if you are using Monero or another cryptocurrency. And what I saw with Zano was the fact that you could have decentralized marketplaces. You don't have to have a third-party administrator. You can use the escrow function that's integrated into Zano, which is private by default, to then kind of work out arrangements with people peer-to-peer, which is really cool. And I think that could have a lot of use case. But that's what originally brought me in, was that capability. Because I use escrow, not, well, I do deposits, like customer deposits in my business, right? Somebody wants me to work on a big project, whether it's like bookkeeping cleanup or whether it's like a big tax return or something like that. I usually get my clients to pay up front for that kind of thing, at least some of the amount that it's ultimately going to cost. And so if I could do that with Zano, they put up, you know, some kind of collateral that indicates that they're going to go through with the deal that we have after I put in all this work. That's useful to me. That could be useful to a ton of other people too. But on top of the private escrow contract capability is the fact that you have the private proof of stake part, which means that you can basically get a private 2-3% yield off just holding these cryptos, which is pretty sick. But also you can build tokens. There have been a few people in our space that have built their own tokens on top of Zano. They're private. They have all the features and capabilities of Zano, dynamic block size, tail emission, things that you want in a cryptocurrency, right? But their own token. And that could be a pretty big deal. And I've got some ideas of my own as to what I want to make tokens out of. But they're going to be making it pretty easy for this to happen. They also have ionic swaps, which is something that they're going to integrate into their private DEX, which is called Zano Trade. So people are going to be able to make their own tokens. They're going to be able to trade them using the escrow function and the ionic swap function, which is sort of like atomic swaps, but different in a kind of way that I don't care to get into or explain. And it's really cool what they're working on. And Roger Ver is still backing the project, and it's really cool. Cake Wallet's about to be doing an integration where Zano is going to be on Cake Wallet. Bitcoin.com wallet's going to be integrating Zano as well. So you have a lot of stuff going on with this crypto. And, I think I'm going to start using it for my business if people want to use that. But, I'd have to update the website and stuff. But it's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet. I like seeing it. And that's an update on that. But what else do I want to talk about? I don't know. I'm chilling. How long have we been going for? I had to download this recording software again on my new laptop because my old one broke. So I don't know how long this has gone on for. But ultimately, everything's coming along okay. Just wanted to kind of check in with you guys, say what's up. There's probably a lot more that I missed over the last 5-6 months, but I'm going to try to make more vids and just try to re-increase my presence on here because, there's not a lot of people out there talking about Monero, and I think some people are getting spooked away with everything that has been going on. But, dude, it's been rocketing up. Like, if you look at the price, if we can do a little price chat, it went up to 174 this morning, which is crazy. I mean, think of how crazy that is. You have the biggest exchange in the world delist Monero, which I think would honestly kill most other cryptocurrencies, right? I mean, we're not on Coinbase. We're not on Kraken in some countries. We're not on Binance. I mean, and we still have this kind of resilience. And what that basically shows is we have inelastic demand, which means we have a unique use case. And that's not something any other cryptocurrency out of like the 11,000 cryptocurrencies can say. Because privacy is one of those things that once you find something that works, you stick with it until otherwise you're proven it doesn't work. And because Monero is dominant in that sphere, it's going to remain something which is used. It is used a lot. And the privacy is only getting better. And I did see that there is a new development happening, full range membership proofs, I believe is what it is called, and that is being implemented by a fella named Luke Parker. So shouts out to you, Luke Parker. Thanks for putting in the work. But apparently the anonymity set's going to go up to like 100 million or something crazy like that. And I didn't think that's hyperbole. I think it's actually going to go that high. And at that point, it'll be pretty much impossible to track and trace. But that's something they're still working on. And yeah, I mean, this is going to be something that sticks around. I'm telling you. And in that case, you could see it as a store of value, kind of. I mean, if it can survive major exchange delistings and return back to its price that it was at and beyond, I think it's actually higher than where it was when Binance delisted it. I mean, if you have that kind of thing happening, it kind of proves itself as being like a private store of value, which is kind of cool. And I've been kind of against calling crypto a store of value for a number of reasons, but if there's any crypto that could be considered a store of value, it's Monero, because it has that security guarantee moving into the future because of the tail emission, because it has price stability as a result, despite, I guess you could say, all these extraneous factors that are kind of moving against it. Despite all that, it maintains value. So it's kind of proving itself out. But yeah, I mean, there's so many good things going on. I'm going to cut it here. I don't know what else more to say, but we'll check back in soon. We'll say what's up. Maybe I'll find some articles where we can really drill in on and do analysis on. But yeah, good to get back in touch with you bros. Hope you guys have been doing well, and I'll see y'all next time.